Hey everyone, so tonight I am going to talk about being overweight. This started with a question I was asked back in our last Q&A, where we ask everyone to send us in questions that they may want us to answer. I told you guys in that video that I would follow up with another video, and that's what I'm doing with this one. So this all started with a question. It goes so much deeper than being overweight. But I do want to say up front that everyone is different. If you have the issues that I'm going to talk about, it doesn't mean that you're going to have everything that I have. It doesn't mean I'm going to have everything you have. It doesn't mean that what helps you will help me. It's not intended to diagnose anyone. This is not me speaking as a nurse. This is just me speaking about my personal experience, my journey, and how I got to where I'm at. So hopefully this will work this time. I've tried filming this several times, like 15 times, and I've not made it happen yet. So maybe I'll get through this one. If I start crying, I apologize in advance. So let's just jump right into it. My weight has not always been what it is. I've not always been overweight. I was very thin my entire life until my early 20s. When I hit my early 20s, I'm going to say 22 to 24, I started gaining weight. When I started gaining weight, I also had an absence of my menstrual cycle. My periods stopped. So I, of course, went to an OBGYN, and they were like, oh, we can fix this. We'll give you some progestin to start your period back, and we'll put you on birth control to keep your periods regular. So I left, thinking, okay, what's wrong with me? I went to 5 doctors, 5 OBGYNs, and this was probably over a span of a year, at least a year, and none of them could tell me what was wrong. So the last doctor who told me that he was going to give me progestin and birth control, I said, well, what if I want to get pregnant? Which at this time I had no desire to get pregnant at all. It was just, I wanted some answers, and I wanted to try a different route. So he said, oh, well, we will have to send you to a fertility specialist. So I let them make that referral, and I went to a doctor in Chattanooga. And when I got there, I kind of figured, I was going to get basically the same runaround that I've already got from the other 5 doctors. But when she walked in the room, she looked at me and she was like, oh, you have PCOS. What's PCOS? I'd never heard of it. At that point in time, I was not a nurse. I was not in nursing school. I never heard of PCOS. It was still fairly new at that time. You gotta think, this was about 20 years ago. So new actually that they were doing trials on medications for treatment for PCOS that they asked if I would be willing to participate in, which I did not. But she diagnosed me with PCOS before she ever ran a single test, just by looking at me, because my appearance had changed in a way that I told her I had it. She, of course, followed up with tests that confirmed it. PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome, for those who do not know. It's also been called, I think, polycystic ovary syndrome, polycystic ovary disease, ovarian disorder, I've heard multiple names for it, but I'm going with what I was diagnosed with way back when, the real OG, Polycystic ovarian syndrome, but I will just continue to call it PCOS. At that time, I also was diagnosed with hypothyroidism. So my thyroid levels were low, in which they put you on a hormone to treat that. No biggie, right? They just give you a hormone to replace it. We'll get back to that. So I've learned throughout the years that about 8% of women are affected with PCOS. So it's fairly common if you think about that percentage. Now, well, I guess now that they know what it is and it's being diagnosed, it's fairly common. It can cause you to have multiple cysts on your ovaries, which was part of why it took so long for me to get diagnosed. In the beginning, I'd had no cysts on my ovaries. And that's like a key player in polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's almost like a sack full of pearls on most women. I did eventually develop cysts, but like I said, in the beginning, I had none. It causes you to have menstrual irregularity. It causes weight gain. It causes acne. You get high androgen levels, high male hormone levels, which can cause you to have excessive hair growth in places that ladies don't typically have hair growth. Mustache, beard, chest hair, shoulder hair, back hair, abdomen. I mean, you name it, it can grow. Even like my arm hair throughout the years has gotten darker. It can cause you to have male pattern hair loss, like, the right in here area, which mine has thinned in this area throughout the years, but thankfully it's not as bad as it could be. It can cause you to have an increased risk for type 2 diabetes. It can cause you to have high cholesterol, high lipid levels, sleep apnea, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It can cause depression, anxiety, increased risk for endometrial cancer. Infertility, I believe, it is still the number one cause of infertility in women. It also causes insulin resistance, which is something that I have. We'll get to that in just a moment. The symptoms of PCOS is a lot of what I just said. The male pattern hair loss, weight gain, insulin resistance, acne, facial and body hair growth, irregular periods, painful periods, depression, and mood disorders. They want you to treat it with a low carb, low sugar, combination birth control, metformin. It can't be cured. You can only manage your symptoms, and basically that's the three things. You can do metformin, you can do birth control, and watch what you eat. There may be other ones out there for like cosmetic. I know aldactone is one that they can do for cosmetic, skin issues, hair growth, things of that nature. And they may have more out there now that I'm not aware of. Like I said, I'm talking about my own personal things. The insulin resistance, I do want to talk about that. I don't want to get into like the diabetic side of things, because I'm not a type 2 diabetic at this point. I can very easily become a type 2 diabetic or even a type 1 diabetic because of the insulin resistance. So that I do want to talk about, because a lot of people don't understand that sometimes when someone's overweight, it's not just because they ate their way to that level, to that weight. I'm trying to think of, I guess, correct terms to say this. So I'm going to try to describe insulin resistance in a way that helps people understand without trying to sound too medical about it. So when someone eats carbs or sugar, I mean, even a piece of fruit has carbs and sugar, so it doesn't have to be a donut. If you eat in general, you're getting some type of carbs and sugar. Unless you're doing keto, and that's a whole different thing. So let me land my plane back to where I was. If you eat carbs and sugar, it triggers your pancreas that it needs to release insulin. So once it releases the insulin, that stimulates your muscles and your cells, and it tells them, hey, there's blood sugar here. There's glucose in your blood. We need to, snatch that up, and we're going to turn it into energy, and then it's going to be burned. Everything goes back to normal. That's what's supposed to happen. So in my body, that's not what happens. In my body, when I eat and my body says, hey, there's sugar in the bloodstream, let's release some insulin, my cells do not react to insulin. They're like, nope, I don't want that. So what happens is I have the blood glucose from the food I ate is in my blood. The insulin that was released to treat that blood glucose is in my blood. And it's kind of cycling, because the blood sugar will go back to your pancreas. More insulin will be released. So now you have higher insulin levels, and the blood sugar is still there. And it's kind of a cycle. And then, like say that was breakfast. Well, you're going to eat again at lunch. So I eat again at lunch, and my blood sugar goes even higher. And I'm not saying my blood sugar is 400. I'm just saying that when you eat food, your blood sugar rises. So my body produces even more insulin to treat that blood sugar. And it just keeps getting higher and higher. More and more insulin, more and more blood sugar. So at a certain point, my body is going to say, I have to do something with this blood sugar. It's just floating around in here. I've got to do something with it. So it decides that since it can't turn it into energy, it's going to turn it into fat. So it turns it into fat. It gets stored, which then does what? It causes my weight to go up. It's not a pretty cycle when you can eat, healthy food and your body still turns it into fat. It's, I mean, that in itself, I could probably stop here. I'm not going to, but I could probably stop right there. So that can cause you to be overweight. And then being overweight can tell your ovaries to secrete testosterone. And then that tells your brain that if you've got all this testosterone, then it doesn't need to ovulate. So if you're not going to ovulate, then you're not going to have a period. Kind of see how it's all fitting together now. It's a horrible thing in itself. I mean, PCOS is bad. The insulin resistance is probably worse. The low thyroid, the hypothyroid, that's pretty bad too. So, I mean, it sucks. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It sucks. Basically, what has happened at that point, I was put on metformin for the insulin resistance. I was put on birth control for my my periods being irregular, and I was sent on my way. I did have to go back in for lab work every month, and they would alter my medications. I put on levothyroxine, thyroid hormones. So I would have to go in every month for labs, and they would adjust my medications as they needed to, depending on what my hormones were doing that month. And that lasted until 2011. So in 2011, I had a miscarriage. I had been told up until that point that I could not get pregnant. Not maybe, not probably not. I was told I could not get pregnant. So I lived by that. I thought I couldn't get pregnant. At the time, I didn't know I was pregnant until I had a miscarriage. So that was another hard blow. The only thing we can come up with is that David was having some health issues and they had put him on testosterone. So he was on testosterone. I was being pumped full of all kinds of hormones for my issues at that point in time. And the two combined is all that we can figure on how it happened. When I had the miscarriage and went into the doctor, and this was when we were living in Knoxville, when I went to the doctor, she told me that even if I were to get pregnant again, I had a 1% chance that I would ever meet that child. So, and that had to do with, my eggs not maturing. Like, I wasn't releasing like one good egg. I was releasing hundreds of tiny eggs that couldn't be fertilized the way that they should and wouldn't grow properly, and it was just a whole big science behind it. So 1% chance. And that triggered more depression. So at this point, I can't even lie, I was severely depressed. I had already gained, the 80 pounds in the beginning. And it had pretty much maintained at that point. I didn't gain any more. I didn't lose any. Like, it was basically impossible to lose. But I wasn't gaining more. At the point of the miscarriage, however, I was severely depressed. I'd been told I'd never have kids. I mean, I'd heard it before, but I didn't really want to believe it, I guess. I guess somewhere in the back of my mind, it was still something that might happen. After I had the miscarriage and they put a percentage on it, it was a whole different ballgame. It was like, done deal, game over. I was depressed. And I just didn't care. Like, it wasn't like something I wasn't going to recover from, but it was, I don't know, it was life altering. So at that point, I did eat on some pounds. About 20 to 30 to be exact. So we have the 80 from the beginning. Then I ate, I'm going to say 20. So there's 100 pounds. Like, at that point, I had gained a whole nother person. So that's kind of where I stayed. And then we moved back down to this area. I had to get a new doctor, of course. So when we get this doctor, and I talked to him about everything that I was told before, and he kind of smirked, and I kind of thought, that's not a good reaction. I don't know if I like this guy. But he smirked because he was a very educated man. I mean, doctors are educated, but Some go above and beyond. And this man knows what he is doing. So he, just by looking at my lab work, and he tells me, you can get pregnant. I can help you get pregnant. It's not a problem. And I was kind of like, sure, what, this guy's crazy. He's crazier than I am. But he adjusted my medications. He added a fertility medication. And he told me, if you're not pregnant in 6 months, come back and see me. And it took 5 months. And this is the part where I started getting teary-eyed. In 5 months, I was pregnant. I was terrified, but I was pregnant. I went through my whole pregnancy basically on edge because I was afraid to let myself get excited because of all the bad, all the negative I'd heard for so many years. But we have Gabe now. Beautiful little 2-year-old boy. And that I am thankful for. More than I can ever say. And I'm truly sorry for those who can't get pregnant. My heart breaks for you. Or was you? For many years. And that pain is not something you forget. Okay, I'm sorry. So, back to my issues. After I had Gabe, well, actually, during my pregnancy, I was losing weight the whole pregnancy. Basically, from the time that we found out I was pregnant till the time I had him, I was losing weight. And it wasn't too concerning because I did have that extra 100 pounds sitting there. So the doctor wasn't concerned. I did get a little concerned around, I believe it was probably close to the 5-month mark, where I thought, okay, surely I'm going to gain, 10 pounds at least. And I never did. But, the baby was growing fine, so he didn't see a reason to be concerned. When I had Gabe, I weighed less than when I got pregnant. By about 40 pounds, I believe it was. I lost about 40 pounds while I was pregnant. And I mean, I can put in pictures if I can find some. I mean, I have them. I just have to locate them, of my pregnancy and how large I got. I mean, I was huge and I had lost weight. But all of that being said, when I went for my 12-week checkup after having him, I hadn't been feeling good. Something was just off. In which I did have to have an emergency C-section, and I had complications following the C-section that were pretty extensive. So I just kind of figured that it was part of the typical postpartum issues that I had. But when I got there for that appointment, and they did labs, of course, my thyroid antibody levels came back over 500, I believe in the 560s. And for that particular antibody test, I think the highest that level is supposed to be is 35. So 560s from 35, that's a huge problem. When that happened, he told me that I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Hashimoto's thyroiditis. That kind of ran together the first time. And that I needed to see, my primary care. So I went to see my primary care. They did some ultrasounds on my thyroid and found out I do have nodules on both sides of my thyroid. They sent me to an endocrinologist. And Hashimoto's, for those of you who do not know what that is, it's an autoimmune disorder, like an inflammation, where your body's immune system attacks your thyroid gland. And your thyroid gland produces hormones that regulate a ton of stuff in your body. It regulates your body's metabolic rate, which is, basically the way your body uses energy. That can control your heart rate. It can control brain function, muscle function, bone maintenance, digestive function. It controls so many things. But when I got to the endocrinologist, I found out, I am a nurse, so I've heard of it, but it wasn't something I dealt with a lot. So I learned some things at the endocrinology office, and it can be genetic or women can develop it after giving birth, and that happens in like 5 to 9% of women can get it postpartum, but that's usually temporary. We're over 2 years in and I still have it, so mine's not going anywhere, I don't believe. With that, it can cause weight gain. There's weight again. Extreme fatigue, dry skin, coarse hair loss, fluid retention, which also affects your weight, constipation, depression, anxiety, mood swings, and irritability. And when I say mood swings, I'm talking people will think you're crazy. There are days I think I'm crazy. It's just like an uncontrollable, just completely change your mood. You can have anxiety, panic attacks, depression, digestive issues, heart palpitations, brain fog. There are days that I cannot form a single thought. Like, you feel ignorant. And you can't figure out what, I can't even describe it. So, dizziness, body aches, joint pain, teeth pain, insomnia, cold hands and feet, cold intolerance, heat intolerance, miscarriage, infertility, inability to fight off colds and viruses. It can cause you to have seasonal allergy issues. Like, I never in my entire life had allergy problems until a couple of years ago, and now I have to take Claritin every day. It causes you to have low-grade fevers, acne again, just malaise, just a general, you just don't feel good. You don't necessarily know why, you just don't feel good. And then you have flare-ups. And that can be anything that I just mentioned. Usually more extreme versions of the things I just mentioned. But so, a flare-up. Let me just get onto that. A flare-up can be caused by not getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night. That's what they recommend if you have Hashimoto's. 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night. I work 12-hour days, usually 60 hours a week. I have a 2-year-old when I get home. I have life when I get home. I'm not sleeping 8 to 9 hours a night. I'm just not. It's not happening. I would love to. I would really love to. But realistically, it's not going to happen. Too little or too much exercise can cause a flare-up. Stress can cause a flare-up. So basically, just living your life can cause you to go into a flare-up. My personal flare-ups, I get, you can see how this is kind of swollen right here. I get a swollen neck. I have a spot back here on my scalp that psoriasis type patch comes up, which I've been in a flare-up for about 4 weeks now. That's why I'm having these issues. Pink hands. My palms will get pink. See how much pinker they are? Splotchy skin, like these red patches on my face, which I'm wearing makeup, so they're much worse without the makeup. Bloodshot eyes. Bulging eyes. Mine aren't doing it now, and I don't mean like popping out of my head, but they'll just be like, look a lot bigger than they normally do. Dry, cracked feet and heels are another big one that I have, and it's like you can exfoliate until exfoliate till the cows come home, and it's still going to be dry and brittle when you get up in the morning. Dry, brittle nails. I typically have my cute little nails on, but I haven't for the last few weeks because my nails are splitting, like peeling. So that's all from just this flare-up that I've been in for all this time. So this is another thing that it's not curable. It's treatable. So I take thyroid medication to replace the hormones that are being killed off by my immune system attacking my thyroid. So again, it's kind of like another Band-Aid. Things that I have tried, as far as the weight loss part of it, I'm going to try to summarize this and let you guys get out of here before I ramble too much. I have tried the South Beach diet, which was like low carb. That's telling you how far back this goes. I've done low fat. I've done vegetarian. I've done clean eating. I've done meal replacement shakes and the snack bars that go with it. Intermittent fasting. I've done keto. I have done starvation, basically. I have been a member of basically every gym in this town. I've done HIIT workouts, cross training, yoga, walking, running, Pilates. I've basically tried it all. I even at one point did these wraps in nursing school where you went in and they put the stuff on you and then they wrapped you with saran wrap and they sat you in this room for, I don't even remember how long, 30 minutes to an hour. Me and a girl I went to nursing school with, a really good friend of mine, we both tried this, and then they had these tables that like worked out your muscles afterwards. I have tried everything. None of it worked. None of it. I mean, yeah, the 20 pounds that I ate on, remember I was telling you about that? That's gone. But this that I have now is all from my hormone issues. And my weight has gone up. I was at my lower weight when I had Gabe, which was minus the pounds that I ate on. And I ate healthy after my pregnancy. I mean, you see us do like the cookie challenges and stuff like that, but that's a very small portion. I might have 1 or 2 bites of a cookie. And like when the camera's off, I don't go finish the cookies off. I typically eat salads, vegetables, fruits. If David eats fried food, I ask him to bake mine or grill mine. So, I mean, I'm not a horrible eater. The only thing left to do is this AIP protocol diet. It's the autoimmune protocol, and it's a paleo, but it's more strict than a regular paleo diet. I did try this diet last week. I tried to start it in all of its full-blown glory, and that ain't happening. Anyone who has done this diet, does this diet, lives this diet, I commend you. I give you props. You are rock stars. I am too wimpy for this. It has a lot of foods that you have to eliminate and avoid. So I'm going to do it one at a time until I get to the full-blown AIP, like the full version. Starting with dairy, because dairy is a huge issue for me. So once I get dairy eliminated, then I'll move on to something else. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to get there. So I'm going to do my best to lose this weight. Yes, I do something to do something about it. I'm doing something about it. I'm trying. So that's where I'm at. And I'll leave you guys for now. And thank you for listening. I hope you have a great night, and be kind. Just be kind, because you never know what someone else is going through. And I mean, that's really just all there is to it. Just be nice to one another, be kind to one another. And until next time, live the life you love.